Ayo, Chainsaw Man is not playing around. The thing I think I really enjoy about this show so far is how much of an identity it already has and how unapologetically violent, horny, but how much of a clear path it wants to go down, which immediately separates itself from a lot of shows that really, when you take a look at a character like Denji at face value, if you really just take his base personality and his hunger for, that teenage lust of just wanting to grab boobs or, just wants to be with a pretty woman, that's basically any generic harem protagonist. The thing that separates Denji and makes him far more interesting to follow pretty much from the get-go is that episode 1 actually gave him a pretty interesting establishing setup of he lived like absolute garbage, he was treated like garbage, and he essentially had to sell his organs and his body, whether he was fighting something for what is basically just the Yakuza, a mob, or he had to actually sell body parts to cover a debt that his family basically owed. And the fact that you immediately felt like, damn, this kid, he just wants to eat a decent meal. He just wants to have a decent life with a girl. So then when you come into episode 2, and he now has basically everything that he thought he wanted, and his only real mission at this point is to grab some boobs. Rather than him being, that typical harem protagonist who just wants the casual thing but then just amplifies it. Instead, this is a dude who literally, he's just looking at it as, if I die tomorrow, I've already did better than I did most of my life here. So he's not looking at things in this dumb way where he's, he has a normal fine life and he's just amplified to be an ignorant asshole. Instead, Denji's like, the dude suffered. And yeah, he's definitely socially awkward. He's definitely, not understanding what maybe normal is because he never really experienced it. But what makes him far more interesting is that, his hunger, he knows what he's doing. He's not, transforming into a chainsaw to cut apart this beast because, well, there's porn on the ground. He's never been able to afford it. He doesn't have a computer, right? It just is very normal for someone in his age, in his mindset, who suffered as long as him. And it makes it be like, oh, instead of wanting to push this character away, I'm genuinely interested to see where this dude who's now turned into a dog who would gladly woof if Makima commands, I'm interested to see where his mindset will go because really there isn't a character quite like him, even if the base of his character you see at so many starts of different anime. The difference is Chainsaw Man took that base and turned it into something actually fairly unique, and the number of fascinating characters that surrounds him, it's hard not to say, I need to see where this character goes. I would be shocked if any anime originals, and I'm an anime original myself, really thought Makima didn't have some sort of twisted or ulterior motives. I mean, that just feels obvious in my opinion. I mean, she knows this dude can transform into the Chainsaw Devil, and she's obviously interested by that. Whether she's an evil or bad person, I think remains to be seen, but in terms of looking at it from a logical view of not being tormented and given a second chance like Denji, it's understandable why, from his point of view, he just accepts it at face value because, he was ready to die as is, and he's living a pretty great life that, I mean, yes, being treated as a dog, all things considered, for that being a upgrade of your previous life, the dude has definitely suffered. But I think it's going to be interesting because, without a doubt, she says the right things to people in their lowest points in their life. What type of person are you into? Well, I'm into the Denji type, right? She's very much doing everything that this boy needs to hear in order to follow her like a mutt, and she's doing it with grace. Now, like I said, it still remains to be seen what her end goal is with Denji, or is it just basically grouping a lot of powerful people together? I don't know. But in terms of if you had a level head, you would raise an eyebrow and say, something's amiss here. But in terms of his perspective, it's understandable why he went woof, and hell, I'm sure half the anime community went woof when she said that, right? But I will say, out of every character that we got introduced to in this episode, the one that had my interest the most was actually Aki. I mean, this dude was awesome. I mean, he, from the previews, just gave me a very positive impression, but I thought it was hilarious because this dude generally came across as he was trying to help this stupid boy, but then to see how it escalated into the nut devil joke, which was so damn good. Often when you watch stories, they have that clean fighting rule where they're not going to be assholes, they're not going to take the cheap shot, which is the nut shot, right? And they're not going to do it more than once. But for Denji, he's going to play dirty because why the hell wouldn't he? He clearly wouldn't be able to match a normal fight with this dude. who can probably swing around that sword on his back better than most. And the fact that he just continues to do it, and then when they come back, he just says like, yeah, the reason is his nuts got hurt by the nut devil. And I'm like, oh shit, this show is hilarious, and it's not sugarcoating the insanity that we're seeing, whether bloody, whether sexual, or just whether teenage simplistic humor, and it's just so good for that. But Power was another fun character that got introduced. Pure psycho. Seems like controls blood into weapons, and the fact that she just is after the bloodiest, the most brutal fights possible. There's some psychotic characters, and then you have characters who, it's hard to tell, are they going to become psychotic, or are they actually pretty normal in the grand scheme of things? Aki comes across as he definitely probably is interested in Makima, because, I mean, clearly when he mentioned how, like, oh, I can't wait to hug her again, he freaked out in the middle of the street there. But it's interesting to see how the characters are already interesting from a face glance, whether you have Denji being, you know, someone who just had such a shitty life thrown into, like, him just having multiple jams alone is enough to say, holy shit, he won the lottery. But his general lust for, well, sexual satisfaction, and just the fact that, you know, he feels very normal in a not so normal situation, but because he really didn't grow up in a simplistic environment, like, he's now just accepting that this is his life. You have, you know, just a lot of fun character personalities at face glance, or those that make you say, where are they truly going to go with their ulterior motives? And will they become bad? Are they already bad? Or is it just a very complex situation that eventually a character like Denji will have to decide which side he stands for? And it will be interesting to see how all the characters open up. The ending of the episode was fantastic. I'm actually interested to see what the different endings will be visually, because I'm wondering if they're all going to have a similar style, at least visually, or if there's going to be, like, very much like it feels completely different. As it stands, the opening, the endings we've heard are absolutely bangers, and they are perfect for what they need to be. But it just feels like this production has a lot of polish. Just the general movements in the way, like when he takes his cigarette out, right? Just there's a much more interesting movement template that they're using for these characters, and it just feels way more fluid, way more realistic than what you're typically used to. People hype up the obvious Sokka moments when a character does something crazy, but it's actually the general production and how movements happen, whether arms or anything, and it actually has a very similar style to the Kizumonogatari movies, if you've ever watched those, in terms of how Shaft animated a lot of those general movements. And it's really impressive what Mappa and this team have done in terms of really making an all-star team that I think will be the new reference when people talk about, like, hey, you know, I can't believe One Punch Man Season 1, that director got all this crazy talent to make that. I feel like Chainsaw Man's going to be the new reference point given what we've seen so far, and I feel like it's only going to get better from here. But I'm loving it. The characters are psychos, they're wild, but it just feels like it knows where it's going, and it makes things that are normally pretty mundane into something that's already fascinating right from the get-go. And that's why I think it's obvious why Chainsaw Man blew up as much as it did, and we're still just scratching the surface. But thoughts, feelings, ideas, theories, if you got any on where it might go from here, do let me know. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.